Hey guys, today I'm going to show you some video and some pictures from when I took possession of my tiny house, Serendipity. I'm going to show you some video of it being pulled out of the shop in Lethbridge from Teacup Tiny Homes shop, and a very short one of it coming down the road, and then it being pulled into my spot here at the park. But first, if I could just ask you to subscribe. I noticed that the majority of my viewers are not subscribers, and the reason that it's important to subscribe is because the more people that subscribe and or comment, the more that YouTube will recommend my videos when somebody is looking for information on tiny homes in general, tiny homes in Canada in particular. That algorithm apparently is dependent on how many subscribers you have and how many comments you have. So if you find the content useful and would do me that favor, that would be incredible. So anyways, let's get to the video. As you may or may not know, if you've been watching my videos for a little while, I took possession of my house in July of last year. The week before that, I actually traveled down to Lethbridge to see the tiny house and do my walkthrough with my builder. My builder, Jen, gave me the option of doing the walkthrough virtually, but I really wanted to see it in person, and I wanted her to go over all of the utilities and systems in the house so that I had a full understanding of how to maintain them and how to work them. I thought that that would be not only really useful, but also really exciting. So on the Friday before I actually had it delivered, I drove down to Lethbridge with my best friend Jenny, and we did a walkthrough of the tiny house. And it was almost surreal, because for a year I had been planning, thinking, working on, making decisions on, everything tiny. I had seen it under construction, which really made it real. And I had obviously had lots of pictures. One of the nice things that my builder did was send me a lot of photos and even video of her walking through the tiny house as it was being built, because it was being built in a shop in Lethbridge and not where I could see it on a regular basis. So that was really great, and I really appreciated that. Going to see it, to do the walkthrough, and seeing it finished with the siding on and everything ready to go was magical, I think you would say. And I was thrilled. And we went through the mechanical systems. We looked at the trailer and the hookups for the utilities. She discussed, the furnace and the hot water tank and the washer dryer combo unit, the stove, everything that was in here. We went through, and it was nice to meet some of the people that had worked on the house, which was really special as well. It was kind of an incredible day because seeing it finished made it real, and I will never forget that day as long as I live. I hope you enjoy the pictures of that day. I don't have a ton, but it was nice to have some pictures that Jenny took of me. There's one of me standing in front of the kitchen, the big kitchen window, where I'm talking about that I want to put an eating bar there. And as you'll see from one of my other videos, I actually did make that happen. There was some things that I wanted to do myself. Going forward, that's the nice thing about living in your house, right? You can decide to do projects as you go. Make me feel like I was contributing to making it my home. That was important to me, that there would be some stamp of my own do-it-yourselfer sort of spirit in here. So that day was that. It was walking through, it was seeing it finished, and that was 6 days before I drove to Lethbridge to pick her up. The next weekend, on July 8th, I drove down to Lethbridge. Now, I had a professional move my house. It's 37 feet long, 9.5 feet wide, and not something that my Toyota Echo was going to pull. In fact, I don't think I could pull a bike trailer with my Toyota Echo. But anyways, so I hired a company called Chinook RV Transport. And Chris is the owner there. And as you'll see from the videos, he moved it actually with a truck, not a, I thought it would be being pulled by the cab of one of those big transport trucks. But no, he moved it with his 1 ton. Anyways, he has a custom built truck that is specifically, the engine is specifically built and the frame is specifically reinforced to move heavy trailers. And he's moved many of the tiny houses that Teacup has built. He was amazing, and so he was super excited to move the house as well. And when I got to Lethbridge, he was there. Actually, the house was already hooked up to the truck, but it was still in the shop. And I mean, it's one thing to see the house in the shop, but it's another thing to see it being pulled out of the shop. I'm sure this isn't the case, but it looked like there was 6 inches of clearance between the top of the house and the top of the door. And it was very nerve-wracking. And Jen had said, you know, maybe you don't want to watch this. And I'm like, no, I want to watch this and I want to video it. And I'm really glad I did, but it was nerve-wracking, especially when he first pulled out, because when he pulled out, he had to go right to get out of the yard, but he had to pull the house all the way out and then back and sort of go back and forth until he had enough clearance to turn and get the house around. And that took some doing, and it took some directing by Jen and one of the other people there to just sort of make that happen. And that was the most nerve-wracking part, I think, for me, certainly for Jen. I think she was very, very stressed out by that. But serendipity came out, and it worked out just fine. It was a wonderful thing to see her out in the sunlight and hooked up to the truck and ready to go.
He did it! Woo!
And then we took some pictures of Jen handing me the keys and me giving her a hug just to say thank you. And then it was ready to take off. And so I followed her home. As we're going down the highway, of course, we're in the slow lane going down the highway, and it was so fun to see, because I'm behind her. It was so fun to see these vehicles come zooming past on the fast lane, and then they would slow right down as they came past the house, and then they would speed up again. And at one point, Chris pulled over into a rest stop just to do a walk around, make sure everything was still good with the house and everything was fine. And of course, I stopped as well. And I said to him, that was kind of funny that the house was getting so much attention. And he says to me, "Oh, I guarantee you this is the most photographed thing on the highway today," because he said every time that vehicles would go past him nice and slow, the passenger would have their phone out taking a video of the house as they were going past. So I thought that was pretty cool. So anyways, we got to Calgary and we got to our spot, and it was so awesome. My best friend Jenny, she was here at the spot to greet me, and so was Dinah. She works for Teacup. They were here to greet me and the house, and so was my park handyman guy, and Roger, the plumber gas fitter, who was going to hook up everything for me. So that everybody was here and waiting for the house when we got here. They had to figure out how she was going to get backed in and how far back she had to go and stuff. So really quickly, Jenny drugged me over to the clubhouse where she was parked to give me a snack, because I hadn't eaten all day. I'd had coffee, but I was too nervous to eat in the morning, and she knew that I wouldn't have eaten. And because she's such a good friend, she knew she had to feed me. So she had some water for me, and she had some snacks for me, and we had a quick snack, and then we came back, and I was able to video the house being backed into the spot and leveled out. And that's one of the things that Chris includes with his service, is getting it backed in, leveled, the jacks down, and everything ready to go. So that was as far as his service went. It cost me $1,000 to get the house from Lethbridge here, and that included the wide load permit to move the house, because she's wider than 8.5 feet wide, which is the street legal width. Transport trucks and all that, they're always no more than 8.5 feet wide. So I needed a wide load permit, not guide cars or anything like that. It's not that wide, but a permit to move it down the highway. And that $1,000 included the permit, which my understanding is, under $300 or around that mark. So I thought that was pretty good, pretty reasonably priced. To have a professional move it was definitely worth the money. Another thing that I'd like to sort of discuss is the fact that of insurance when it's being moved from midnight, actually, of the 8th. My house was insured through my home insurance. Using a professional, you also have the comfort of knowing that they have insurance as well. So God forbid something happens while they're moving the house, there's that extra level of insurance and comfort level there. Knowing that the driver that's moving your house is a professional, knows what they're doing, does this for a living, knows what they're doing when it comes to moving something that big and getting it set up and everything like that. So that was a real comfort level. I didn't have that experience. You may have that experience when you're moving your tiny house, and that's awesome. But I do strongly recommend that you have insurance before you move your tiny house, if you can get it. Now, I know I have a friend, a viewer, who is struggling to find insurance because their house isn't in Ontario yet, and they're struggling to find a company that will insure it there. But I think that it's easier to find insurance when your home is already in the province, when the insurer can come out and see it. But we'll do another video. I'll do another video on insurance, because I do think that that's really valuable. When you use a professional mover, they do have insurance. As she was going down the highway, and here she was not only insured by my home insurance, but also through Chris's insurance. And I thought that was a valuable thing, because when you put as much of your heart and your money into building a home, you want to feel that comfort level. I wanted to feel that comfort level of knowing that it was insured before it left Jen's shop, because up until that point, her insurance is there and it's safe. But as soon as it gets pulled out onto the highway, it's up to you. And so I would strongly recommend that you have that in your mind about having it insured before you move it. So after they backed it in and Chris left, with my sincere thanks, then we had to get the house hooked up, and Roger and his apprentice went to work hooking up the water and the sewer, and it didn't take long before they came to me to say that there was a problem. The problem is that to hook up the sewer, there has to be a certain angle of run from the toilet to the sewer line in the ground, which is underneath where I am now. And the house, because it wasn't up on blocks and it wasn't that high off the ground, there wasn't enough angle. There wasn't enough angle for that run to be appropriate. So that meant I had to get it blocked up immediately. And I had thought that I would have some time to arrange that. I hadn't prearranged it. Another thing I should have thought of ahead of time. But I needed to do that because they couldn't hook up the sewer, my toilet, until I had it blocked up. And I was really hoping, I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep in it that night, that Saturday, but I was really hoping that by the end of the weekend I could stay here. So that meant I had to take care of that. If you've watched my videos before, you know my expression. There's nothing but solutions. So when presented with a problem, you have to figure out the solution. First thing I did was ask Tony, the park handyman, and he said, go down to the office, talk to Shar, and because she'll have a name of a company, a fellow that blocks up, because obviously I live in a mobile home park. All of these homes have had to be blocked up. This is what his company does. So I ran over there, and I did, and I called him, and he said, yeah, I could probably get there next week. And I'm like, well, could you come? I was kind of hoping you could come today or tomorrow. And he's like, let me call you back. So he called me back in about 10, 15 minutes, and he said, well, I can't come tomorrow, but my dad can. And, you know, we used to work together. He retired, but he still helps me out once in a while. He said he can come and do it tomorrow, but he can't pick up the materials. So if you can pick up the materials, he can come and he can block it up for you tomorrow. I said, absolutely. What do I need? So he gave me a list of what we needed, and I came back to the spot. By this point, these guys had taken the tires off. The axles are still on, but they'd taken the tires off and slid them under the trailer on plywood, and they had taken the hitch off the front and slid that underneath, because one of the requirements to be in the park was that the tires had to come off. And I wanted the hitch off. I wanted to be able to skirt in that front as my shed. We got to Home Depot. I gave them the list. Some nice young guy threw everything in the back of the truck, and we came back. And those guys unloaded it. The next morning at 9:30, this fellow Walter was here, and he spent literally about 8 hours here, blocking this house up and leveling it. That's how long it took. It cost me, I want to say it was $1,000 to get it done. It was either $800 or $1,000, or maybe it was less. I'll look it up and I will put it on the screen exactly how much it cost me to have that done. But now I understand why it cost that much. Because of course it has to be perfectly level and stable. It can't move at all, and the water has to drain in the bathtub in the sinks properly. It has to be perfectly level. And we have had, in the almost year that I've been here, we've had some incredibly strong windstorms, and this house has not moved at all. And I will put a picture of the blocking on the screen for you so you can see what it looks like. So I had that done. In the meantime, Steph, the handyman I hired to do my skirting and build me my front step, had started on the front step, or measuring it out. And Steph and I did the first of our 4 field trips to Home Depot to pick up lumber and supplies. It was fun. And so he started building me my front step. They delivered the house on Saturday. Sunday we did the blocking. And we got the materials for the front step. Monday, Steph started working on the front step. I still did not have gas hookup, but I had my water and my sewer, and I had electrical. It took another almost 3 weeks to get my gas hooked up. That Saturday when she came home, after everybody had left, my amazing, dear, sweet friend, Jenny, had brought a dinner and champagne and champagne glasses, and we sat here in this living room on boxes and on a house that wasn't even, ready to be slept in, and we celebrated me being home. I can literally feel it in my heart, how special that moment was, how much I appreciated her doing that. Please subscribe. It really does help, and I love your comments.